all attending. Let's click over to the start slide. Great. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you all could join us today for our start of our 2020 year of ISBM webinars. Today, you're going to hear from the folks at Ascension, and these are some images of them that you can have in your mind while they're talking. There's Jip and Craig and Wes, and they'll all be on the call. And down below is a picture of me in one of my better looks. This is Lynn Yanyo, and I'm the Executive Director of ISBM. And again, welcome everyone that's here. We have about half of the folks that are registered currently in. So I'm going to talk a little bit before we get started with the presentation. You can click over to the next slide. So let me tell you a little bit about how this works if you've not been part of our webinars before. So during the webinar, our speakers are going to be talking, and you have the opportunity at any time during the webinar to click on the little folder that has a Q on it, the Q&A tab. If you click there, you can type in your question. I'll be monitoring those questions all during the presentation, and then I will field those out to the guys at the end of their presentation in an order that seems to make sense to them too. So at any point, don't wait. You don't have to wait till the end. Just drop your question in. If you're having a technical difficulty, do that as well, because we'll field those behind the scenes while we're running. So if anybody's having difficulties, you can use your Q&A tab to ask a question about that too. Okay. Next slide. Okay, we always get asked, how can I get this afterward? Because it was so good, I need to see it again, or I need to tell somebody that they need to see it. That's great. So everything will be available to you, even if you're not a member, and we hope that you'll think about that after I talk to you about it. But if you're not a member, you'll get free access to this on our website, isbm.org/events, for the next 30 days. And you can review it, listen to it, download it. And you'll also get a copy of the handouts in a PDF format. That will get sent to you by email after the presentation. Next slide. So who are we people? ISBM was founded in 1982 at Penn State in the Smeal College, and it's an institute of academics and B2B companies for the purpose of advancing the science of B2B marketing. We want to accelerate the development and the adoption of innovation and marketing best practices for the growth and sustainability of B2B companies, in particular the members of ISBM, of those B2B companies. So we intend to be your premier organization for intimately connecting you marketing professionals with the thought leaders, educators, and academic researchers that are doing the work. And we actively drive their work, define it, and fund it. Next slide. Here's the folks that are part of ISBM. So you've seen my picture before. I'm Lynn Yanyo, the Executive Director. Rand Mendez is our Director for Membership. And if you have been involved in membership or are thinking about it, you're going to want to talk to Rand. Stefan Weitz is the new professor of, a new director of ISBM on the research side. So at Penn State, we have folks that are there that are purposefully developing plans and also creating educational programs for the researchers of the future in B2B. So they do every 2 years a biennial conference for just academic research. And so Stefan is in charge of that. And Gary Lillian used to have that role, and now he's retiring. Those are in air quotes, because I'm not sure these guys ever leave us. But Gary is now stepping back and letting Stefan take on all the work. But we still have direct access to him and his network. Becky Williams is our Director of Curricula, and if you want to talk about any courses, she is your point person. And Ralph Oliva, if you've been with us for any length of time, you'll remember that Ralph has been the membership director for a very long time, and he's emeritus to us as well, but he still continues to help us in various ways along with his network. So we're all at service to you if you're a member of ISBM. Next slide. We have nearly 30 academic fellows and over 200 researchers that are working in the space of B2B. There is no place on earth where that concentration occurs. It certainly doesn't occur at any university, and we bring all of those folks together for your benefit. Next slide. And we have our member companies, and this is just a snippet and sampling of our member companies. Next slide. So what's coming up? So if you're a member or you're interested in being a member, we have a meeting coming up next week. One of our member companies, Milliken, is hosting us in Spartanburg, South Carolina. That meeting is on Wednesday and Thursday of next week. If for some reason you missed it and you still want to go, we'll figure out a way to get you there, but you need to let us know today. And then we have another members meeting that is in September. It'll be September 21, 22, 23, and we're still working on that location. We regularly have some jam sessions. We have one being developed for account-based marketing. Wonder why that is after you hear what you hear today. And then we have several upcoming courses. There are 3 courses that are starting for February, although I now understand that segmenting B2B is sold out, so that course is no longer open, but value proposition with Liam Bay and channel strategy with Sandy Japp is open. And then we have another one in March, which is moving beyond products and creating high value solutions that you might want to take advantage of. And then of course we have our webinar series, and we're in our first one for 2020 here. Our next one will recap our February meeting. And then we have, I don't have it here, but we have our webinar in March that should be scheduled too. Next slide. Okay, so this is my first slide for the folks from Ascension. So I'm going to make sure that everybody has their directions, which is if you have a question, please click on the little folder that has a Q on it and type that in at any time. And I'll be managing those questions and give those back to the speakers at the end of the presentation. If you have an issue, please also do the same, and then we'll keep an eye on you and make sure that everything's good. I don't see any open questions, so everything's great. So let me pass it on to the guys from Ascension. Go ahead, guys.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Wes Johnston, and I'm a professor at Georgia State University, a part-time consultant with Ascension Growth and Innovation Strategies, and also an inaugural fellow with ISBM. I want to thank you, Lynn, for coordinating this for us. So let's get started. I'll kick off today's presentation, and Craig and Jip will join me as we move forward. These are the points that we'll be covering today. We'll define ABM or account-based marketing. We'll look at how key account management and ABM lead to revenue growth. We'll talk about a targeting imperative. We'll talk about an ABM content marketing. We'll look at targeted distribution, ABM technologies, and then near the end, we'll start talking about metrics for success and some pitfalls that can occur in ABM marketing.
And I'm Craig Apatow. I'll give you a quick overview on Ascension. Ascension is basically a management consulting firm based in the Atlanta area that helps clients accelerate organic growth and achieve improved business performance. And what makes us a little bit different is we combine strategies and strategic aspects with hands-on executional support for our clients. We define organic growth 4 ways. Top line revenue growth, number 1. Market share improvement, stealing share from competition. Number 3 is really the development and commercialization of new products and services. And finally, what we call geographic expansion, companies that want to move in new markets, new channels, and new segments. So the strategic and tactical aspects of account-based marketing are very much a part of what we do for our clients around the world every day. We have 4 core areas of focus. We call them the levers of profitable organic growth, and we call them AIMS, A-I-M-S. AIMS being the analytics, which is the financial dimensions of strategic business growth. I being sort of insight mining, a fancy term for full service marketing research, both primary and secondary, to identify exploitable gaps for growth in the marketplace. The M stands for marketing, which is really everything from positioning and differentiation and value delivery all the way down to the executional aspects of marketing, which include lead generation, content marketing, and other programs of the sort. And finally, sales enablement, everything from sales team assessments, development of performance-based sales compensation, and workshop-based training programs. We work with clients across a broad range of industry verticals. About 70% of our clients are in the B2B space. We do about 30% of our business in B2C, but it is not really industry specific. It crosses many different industries.
So there we are again. I just want to point out a few things. Jip is our thought leader for account-based marketing, and Craig is really the bridge between me at Georgia State and into Ascension. Craig is the founding and managing partner at Ascension. He's also been the past chairman of the Georgia State University Marketing Roundtable, and he continues to be active with the Roundtable today. And I'm a professor and a part-time consultant with Ascension.
So what is account-based marketing? Well, Forrester estimates that about 99% of traditionally generated inbound leads fail to ultimately become customers. Account-based marketing is the process of defining, targeting, and nurturing relationships with key influencers and decision makers in high-value target accounts. ABM is a strategic process that works hand in hand with key account management and the sales organization. Instead of broad-reaching mass marketing campaigns that touch the largest number of possible prospects, ABM focuses resources on a defined set of specific, high-opportunity accounts and specific executives within those accounts. It uses customer insights, powerful enabling technologies, and cost-effective digital communication channels to do what it does. ABM leverages customized messaging and targeted message delivery to reach and influence the people who can say yes to your company's products and services. And finally, today's CRM systems help enable your new business and your account management teams to cultivate ABM-developed relationships. So account-based marketing and key account management work very well together to help land new accounts and to grow them over time. Historically, a lot of marketing was focused on generating as many inbound leads, or what we call at Ascension, hand raisers, as possible. The traditional sales funnel, which would narrow at the bottom as the number of marketing and sales qualified leads dropped significantly. As we will discuss today, account-based marketing really flips the traditional sales funnel upside down. Instead of starting with marketing channels, ABM starts with a focus on identifying target industries, target accounts, all the way down to specific executives who influence and or make decisions. ABM then targets multiple executive influencers within the target accounts, and we do that with customized content that is designed to generate interest and potential buying decisions. ABM is a relatively new phenomenon. It is believed to have started around 1993 when Don Pepper's and Martha Rogers' book came out called The One-to-One Future. The book suggested an imminent shift would occur over time from mass marketing to more personalized communication programs. In 1999, the advent of the first CRM systems enabled companies to document every touch they had with executives and prospective as well as current accounts. As we all know today, having a robust repository of available information on both your customers as well as prospects in your CRM system can be an invaluable aid in both lead generation and new business sales prospecting. By 2016, the first books on account-based marketing were beginning to hit the newsstands. But by any measure, account-based marketing is still in the early stage of its development. Account-based marketing is a great way to revitalize existing key account management programs. There are many different reasons a company might consider employing an ABM tactic. And here are 6 examples. Perhaps to launch new products. Perhaps to try to preempt competition and be first to market. Perhaps just generally to expand your market share, take business from competition. Maybe to expand your wallet share within an existing account. In other words, generate more relationships and more business within existing key accounts. As a new market segment or new industry strategy, and finally to grow in a high-value specific account that you're targeting. So ABM can be used in a variety of different ways to help you grow and deepen your relationships. We think of account-based marketing as more of an upstream business activity. Account-based marketing can start before customers have even formed a relationship with your company. It is designed to win you new customers as well as help you manage existing ones. Account-based marketing focuses on understanding, targeting, and onboarding new accounts to your organization. It is more of a key account management is more of a downstream activity. It really starts after you've acquired the account as a customer and you want to expand or deepen your relationship with them. Account-based marketing represents the strategic integration of timely, purposeful marketing messaging that is targeted at key executives to influence their research, shopping, and buying processes.
So from here, what we want to do is talk a little bit about ABM and how it delivers the growth that it does. And the next slide, which shows the upward slanting arrow, before we get into the how, we just wanted to review why it's as popular and as popular these days as it is. And it's simply that it's proven to have delivered better ROI than traditional marketing campaigns and approaches. In a study done a couple of years ago, a benchmark study, the ITSMA looked at firms that were practicing ABM and found that over 3/4 of them, 77%, were realizing ROIs at least 10% higher than they were realizing from their traditional marketing approaches. And in fact, 45% of those companies were realizing ROIs that were actually double or better than their traditional marketing approaches. So that's why ABM is as popular as it is today. Now let's take a look at a little bit about how it delivers what it does and how its approach differs from traditional marketing. These two funnels, the one on the left really reflects what we're all quite familiar with is the traditional sales funnel. It begins with a large number of suspects or potential customers at the top, and you begin an outreach, nurturing process, qualification process that eventually, over time, leads down to a smaller number of those suspects becoming your customers. Depending upon the nature of the business, that can be a long and tedious process, and typically only a small percentage of those that drop into the top of the funnel come out at the bottom as customers. The ABM approach is really quite different. Rather than take a large number of prospects, ABM focuses on a discrete number of important high-value targets. And when we say targets, target accounts here. Now, these are typically in practice a combination of both important existing customers as well as perceived high-value prospects. And the goal is to really create a much more customized, highly engaging series of interactions, both marketing and sales, with those customers and prospects. And the idea is to grow them. In the case of an important customer, to expand beyond the current business base. In the case of a high-value prospect, to penetrate them and then radiate and develop long-standing, high-value, high-revenue relationships. The role of the sales and the marketing function are quite different in both of these. Let's go to the next slide. I think that probably explains that a little bit better. In the traditional marketing funnel, really the sales and marketing roles are pretty discrete. Marketing, for the most part, has responsibility for what we'll call the top of the funnel, developing leads and qualifying them down to the point where they can be handed off to the sales organization for closing. ABM, the two work hand in hand really throughout the whole sales process, or almost the whole sales process. And typically with ABM, there's also a post-sale customer success function that companies will have to ensure that the utilization of their products and services are being appreciated and valued by the company, which will provide the platform for further radiation and penetration of services within them. So in the ABM model, marketing, as it does with the traditional funnel, certainly works at the top, providing initial contact and marketing outreach, but they also provide ongoing air cover for sales throughout the whole process of awareness, interest, consideration, and purchase. Sure. The next is we want to talk a little bit about the steps that are sort of best practice and Ascension has followed in the ABM work we have done with our clients. And they really kind of fall into 8 steps. And what we'll do is sort of list them here, and then some of the balance of this presentation we'll drill down and talk about them in a little bit more detail. First of all is targeting. The first step is to identify who are the right target organizations and also the right contacts within those organizations. Because again, the strategy here is to radiate, so you want to end up with multiple contacts within any given target organization. Once that's done, then the second step is to sort of assess that current relationship. This is really important for your current customers, important ones. Determine what works, what doesn't, what needs to be improved. The next several steps are all about really stages in planning. Step 3 is identifying the most appropriate use cases for that company and the users and the contacts within that company. The use cases for your products and services, which are most appropriate for them. The next step would be to develop some messaging around those use cases to ensure that the benefits are clearly explained. The next step, number 5, is what we'll call audit, which is to say, take a look at your existing content. We'll get into more about content marketing, and determine how much of what you've got currently fulfills the needs of your ABM campaigns. The next step is to plan what steps, what campaigns, what messaging, and what distribution you want to use to execute your campaign. The last one, or the next step, is to create those elements and content that you don't currently have that you'll need to be successful in your campaign. And then the last one is just simply to implement it. So as I said, over the course of the balance of the discussion here, we'll drill down into some of these steps and explain them in a little bit more detail.
Once we understand the relationship that the customer wants to have with our firm, the next step is targeting. Targeting your message to a specific audience is a critical aspect of effective account-based marketing. Ultimately, best practice targeting leverages 2 types of research data that we can pull on target audiences as well as decision-maker profiles. Firmographic data, with the information typically available in the public domain through Google or Bing searches or other kinds of secondary sources. Firmographic data includes company size information, annual revenue, number of employees, key office locations, the NAICS or SIC codes, and industry designations. And then there's buyer demographic information. This refers to descriptive information on target decision makers by industry and or by company. Buyer data includes their title, job function, physical office location, where they reside on their job, number of years of experience, the levels they may be removed from the very top, the C-level, if you will, or the C-suite. So let's look at 2 ways that we can build buyer profiles to better understand our targets. Buyer profiles are also referred to as key influencer or key decision maker personas. Developing personas is an important step in the account-based marketing targeting process. It requires the marketing and sales teams to collaborate and agree on the key target customer profiles. Persona development requires us to ask ourselves who influences and who makes the final buying decisions in target industries and target accounts. We recommend asking yourself 6 key questions about these targets. You may ask questions like, which buyers act the way they do and why do they act the way they do? Buyer priorities. You may look at success factors. What are the pain points or issues they have? You may look at their decision-making criteria. How do they make decisions and what factors influence their decisions? You may look at strategic barriers, which reveal brand perception issues that can impact buyer willingness to consider your company. And then finally, you want to understand the purchase journey. This reveals the true decision-maker influences and trusted information sources. This particular example came out of the healthcare industry. As you'll see in a moment, having all 6 factors will help us to personalize our target messaging. This is another healthcare industry B2B company, an example of sort of a target persona where we go beyond asking those questions and we sort of try to build out a description of who the target buyer is. We develop a more complete picture of target buyers by doing this kind of an exercise. We recommend building descriptive target profiles of influencers and decision makers. We recommend having personalized buyer profile descriptions and distributing them among your marketing and sales team, which will aid them greatly in their content marketing program development and execution, as well as the sales side in terms of outreach and sales prospecting. Note this healthcare executive decision maker persona sample that I'm showing on the screen tries to create a full picture of this individual. How do they think? How do they feel? Are they a family person? How do they feel about their employees? How do they feel about companies that pitch them products? It attempts to put us in the target buyer's shoes and addresses their motivations, management style, and decision-making criteria.
So once the personas are built, then another important aspect of targeting is political mapping. And we do this to understand the influence patterns and map the connections between the decision makers. There's a great book by John Cotter that really explains the need for this. And it's John Cotter on what leaders really do. And he points out in his book that there are a number of changes in organizational dynamics and decision-making that require us to look beyond titles. We can't just simply focus on titles of individuals within the organization. We also have to identify the true influencers, the people that are at the party after the party, on the decisions we need to achieve our growth plans. And then political mapping is a strategic best practice to drive account-based marketing programming and focus downstream sales prospecting. So these are some of the questions we have to ask as we develop our political mapping. The roles, who are they and who are the key players involved? Access, what level of access do we have or can we gain? The level of support on the part of each of the people that we've built personas on. To what degree are they likely to support our products internally, and why? What value do they see in them, in their role and for their organization? Then also the amount of influence they have and the time spent, what our coverage with them has been so far, and is that an appropriate level of coverage with respect to our sales efforts and our marketing? So what are their personal and political agendas? Who will they try to influence, and can their influence be influenced? This is a diagram that we can build, and it's really an organizational chart to begin with, but then we answer a number of other questions around the formal decision role with respect to approver, decision maker, user, evaluator, the level of access we have with them, the level of support they provide us, from being our champion to they don't even know us. Even perhaps worse than that is being an adversary, someone in the organization that doesn't want his company or her company to do business with us. The level of influence they have and our coverage with them, the time that we spent with them so far. The tool then uses red arrows to map influencers up the chain of command. Those identified with red arrows should be targeted in account-based marketing communication and also by sales prospecting leads. The territory sales reps that we have are charged with completing these maps for the top accounts in their territory. Management reviews the territory plans, and political maps help sales reps manage their time most effectively. So we not only get a better marketing opportunity, we also get better utilization of our sales and marketing assets. Now, once we have a map of the account, the next step then is to assess the relationship. So we have political mapping, but then we also have to assess the relationship. And we have an assessment that consists of over 30 questions that really look at 3 issues regarding the relationship with the account. The first is a set of questions that measures the status of our business relationship with the account. That is, the kind of relationship the customer is according us or would like to have with us. And questions are like, where do we rank compared to the customer's other suppliers? Where do we fit into the customer's plan for the future? And overall, if we're one of many, just a vendor, whether we're a credible source or whether we're actually a problem solver, a handful of companies that have solved problems for them, or whether we're the #1 supplier to them, which would be a trusted advisor and maybe even a strategic partner. The second set of questions that we look at are our investment into that relationship. Where do we spend most of our time, marketing and sales, in the account? And do we have good vertical and horizontal coverage? When we want to reach to the top, we also want to have input from potential users. We also need, though, if it's a large company with a number of divisions, then we would want to see, can we build relationships in other divisions at other locations in that company? And are our senior management involved with this account in any way? If it's really an important key account, they should be. And then finally, the third aspect that we assess is the potential to advance the relationship from the customer's point of view. What's the customer's philosophy towards suppliers? What percentage of the customer's budget is spent with us? And also then the impact on the customer switching. What would be the impact on the customer if they tried to switch to another supplier? So we can see that as we move forward and building the relationship through account-based marketing to a longer, stronger, more profitable relationship, we go through stages. And there's 4 potential status levels, from transactional vendor, where we're just one of many, a creditable source, we're maybe among the top 10, a problem solver, where we're among the top 3, and the trusted advisor, where we're the dominant supplier, and instead of being involved in competitive bids, the customer comes to us and asks us if we can propose a solution to their needs. We can assess this in this, it's an Excel spreadsheet that takes the answers to the 30+ questions and builds them into a diagram what you're seeing right now. At the lowest level, it's a transactional approach where the customer is only interested in the product and the price, and we act accordingly. However, as we move forward in the relationship, as we try to build that relationship, we can move up to what's called an enterprise level relationship, which is deep and lasting, and we become a strategic partner with the company. Now, we have to be careful. Anywhere along the line is good. If we get off the line in either direction, we can run into problems. So if we put a lot of effort into this account and they don't respond, they're just looking at price and features in the products, then we're over-resourced. And we're probably better off to reallocate our resources to try to cut our costs in serving that customer. If we move in the other direction, though, if we're only about price and not really understanding the customer and their needs in depth, if we don't have a high-level relationship on our side, our senior executives with their customer, and that's what they're looking for, then we put that customer at risk. That customer is liable to look for another supplier who will have a long-term interest with them and be making strategic investments into their company. So this is when we see where we're at. If we're at transactional marketing level, then the best thing to do is try to strip out our costs and just provide the product, provide what basic needs the company has, and focus on price. If we move to a higher level where we're dealing with the process managers in the company, the managers that own the particular aspects of what we're trying to solve, then we need to move to a more consultative type marketing. We need to create new value for those managers in the firm. And then when we reach the highest level in the company, we have an enterprise marketing relationship, and we need to create extraordinary value and have a long, steady relationship with that customer.
Next, we want to spend just a couple of minutes in talking about use cases. Going back again to the ABM Action Plan slide with the 8 steps that we had shown earlier. The third step was identifying sort of use cases and that are most appropriate for your customers. So use cases is really derived and originated out of the technology industry, but in the ABM context, it's really about mapping different ways customers can derive benefits from your products and services. And best practice for this, that mapping is done 2 different ways. The next slide is actually from an Ascension client engagement going back a couple of years. And the first way that we map this is to take a look at the different uses for a particular product or service that you might offer. In this case, we were working with a financial services client who offered working capital. And you map it against the different audience types. In this case, audience types were 5 different industry verticals that this company served: professional services, manufacturers, contractors, retailers, and so forth. And what we did is identify several different use cases for working capital and figure out which industries are appropriate targets for that particular use case. And then that provides a foundation for going off and developing the associated messaging and marketing content to address those appropriate needs for that vertical. The second way that use cases are done is, in best practice, is to map them by buying stage. So for instance, across the top, you'll see inquiry, learning, evaluation, justification of the purchase, and then the selection. So what you're really doing here is trying to understand at each stage along the way, what kind of messaging and content is appropriate for each use case to help the customer make their decision to buy your product or service.
So we've talked about targeting, we've talked about key account mapping, we've talked about persona building. You got to have messaging, or what we call content. Content marketing becomes very key in account-based marketing. There are many different types of acceptable content that are used in account-based marketing. E-books, white papers, podcasts, e-newsletters, blog entries, case studies, videos, slideshows, infographics, technical sheets, and even curated content that is not custom or original, but does relate to the topic you're trying to talk to your targets about. The key to effective account-based marketing is to build up a variety of content types in your ABM content repository or catalog and have them available for use for distribution to your audience throughout the course of a year, let's say. It's also important to rotate content types to increase the likelihood of grabbing the prospect's attention. It is also important to do some research on target industries and buyers. The key is to identify the types of problems that the prospect is trying to solve for their business. It is also important to understand how messaging needs to change from one influencer or decision maker to the next, either by function or by title. As you can see in this continuum, account-based marketing content can be fairly generic on the left, to customized by account, to highly unique and specific on both the account and individual target executive persona levels. We typically employ 4 different types of content in account-based marketing, content marketing programs. In today's world, the most common type of ABM content is digital in nature. Here you see the 4 different types of digital content created for a global sourcing company that we've done some work with in the past. From short 1 to 2 minute videos, what we call click-through slideshows, which are like little animated PowerPoints where the target user clicks through at their own pace, infographics, and of course curated content that, as we said, is not custom but does relate to the focus of your communication. Curated content is business relevant and addresses identified use cases or target customer needs, but again is not necessarily original. It can be repurposed content. It's not necessary for 100% of your ABM content program to consist of original content. Curated content is a very cost-effective way to round out your available portfolio of content for your ABM program. As you can see here, all digital content should clearly reference the executive or the company distributing it, as well as include a call to action or a response mechanism. Response mechanisms can take multiple forms. They can be hyperlinks to a page on your company website or a microsite for a specific product you're promoting. They can be a digital form fill that asks the contact information so your sales team can follow up with them and get back to them quickly. They can be a company web address or URL, and they can also be a phone number. With email messaging, the recipient need merely hit reply, and the response will go right back to the designated person in your organization who is fielding those inbound requests for information, or as we call them, hand raisers. When we think about ABM content or messaging, there's a few other important things to keep in mind. In today's world, nobody wants to be overtly sold. Thus, all ABM content should be about 70 to 80% focused on the identified prospect or customer's interests, as we articulated them in the persona. And about 20% of your message can be focused on your organization and what you have to sell or what you have to offer. It is okay to mention and promote your company and your capabilities, but be sure that you're providing thought leadership and information of value to the customer. ABM content should be designed to be provocative, educational, and compelling to the target audience. We must avoid the tendency, as we said, to overtly sell or promote our company and its products, services, or capabilities. Prospects and customers alike often resonate positively with content that is tailored to their industry and oftentimes their specific job function. In a second, I'm going to show an example of a short-form video. This happens to be for a global sourcing company. This video was used in an ABM program that we call Content Cast. It's an example of a B2B-focused communication designed to be informative, educational, and provocative without being overtly self-promotional. You'll notice the focus of this video is on ways to avoid the negative impact of U.S.-imposed import tariffs on China manufactured components. And this particular company sources a lot of goods out of China, Taiwan, and other Far Eastern countries. This is obviously a very topical issue right now, given the U.S.-China trade situation. Again, having a large and frequently updated content repository allows you to distribute topical material that is both timely and of interest to buyers in target industries. I'll be back after we run this video in just a second. Sound. Not sure everybody heard, but there was music behind that. We couldn't hear it on our end, but hopefully everybody heard. There was a music track underneath that. It was about a 3-minute video. That tends to be a little longer that we've learned. We like to keep these to about 1.5 minutes to no more than 2 minutes. So ideally, they would be even a little shorter than the one we just shared. Let's go to the next one. Can we go to the next one? Yeah. Once we've done our research and identified buyer needs and wants, and we've created our use cases and we've developed content, we now have to distribute it. If you take a look at this particular diagram, you can see that in most product and service categories, only about 3 to 5% of all the target customers that you're looking to reach are actually in the market, interested or shopping for the products and services that you're offering at any given time. Thus, it is critical that we use multiple channels to touch them multiple times throughout the year. Best practice ABM programs tailor message delivery frequency by target company and/or executive. ABM programs that use multiple distribution channels have the greatest likelihood of impacting a target at the time they're actually looking for what we're selling. Thus, what we call multi-touch, multi-channel communication is at the center of best practice account-based marketing strategy. A monthly or quarterly ABM messaging calendar should also be developed. It will determine messaging and distribution frequency by target audience. Calendars are built in today's digital campaign management platforms, which then automate the message delivery process and make it a lot easier to deliver different messages to different people in different frequencies. Some campaign management platforms are built into marketing automation systems, while others can be purchased or acquired on a standalone basis. We recommend traditional and digital ABM message distribution. Traditional messaging can be in the form of direct mail, while digital messaging can be one of 2 channels, one being email, targeted email messaging, and repeated postings in social media channels that you've learned are frequented by your target audience. For most companies, we focus primarily on email and LinkedIn. However, some of our clients actually get great value out of Facebook and Twitter as well. The platform we use allows message distribution targeted in all of these channels.
We wanted to spend just a couple of minutes and talk a little bit about the technology that's typically needed to execute ABM programs successfully. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but the next slide, as you can see, is a bit simplistic. But if you're going to execute ABM at scale, it's probably worthwhile investigating the purchase or license of a specific ABM platform. We'll talk about some of the players in just a moment. That is going to sit on top of what you've probably already got as a CRM and maybe a marketing automation platform. And as I said, this diagram is simplistic. There may be some other technologies that you're using as well. If we go to the next slide, we show some of the key players in kind of each of those four boxes from the prior slide. Terminus, Demandbase, and Engagio are probably the three leading enterprise-scale ABM platforms in the market today. And lastly, we wanted to spend just a couple of moments and talk about the appropriate metrics to track for an ABM program, and lastly, some of the pitfalls that we have seen in our work with clients when ABM doesn't go well. Let's talk about the metrics first. This slide shows 5 different metrics. Let me start actually at the bottom. Certainly revenue growth is a key goal and metric to be tracked for any ABM program. No big surprise there, and really no different than a traditional marketing funnel. What is a little bit different are some of the contributing stepwise metrics that lead to revenue growth that may not necessarily be tracked or key to a traditional marketing program. Things like coverage. Do you currently have the sufficient data, contacts, and account plans for each target? Awareness. Are the target accounts aware of your company and the solution set? Engagement in an ABM program is something that should be regularly measured and monitored to make sure that the right people are engaging with your company, and is that engagement growing over time? So in other words, the number of folks in a given account and also the depth of their engagement. And lastly, the program impact. Again, ABM is all about very personalized content being delivered to the right people. So in fact, is that having the effect? Are you sending the right stuff to the right people where it can impact their decision-making process? And the next step is simply the key here. We're not going to get into the details of the different types of reporting, but suffice it to say that any ABM program needs to have regular ongoing monitoring of results. And the focus of this is simply that there should be continuous improvement. Every ABM program we've ever worked with clients gets better over time. And you need to obviously measure and report on a regular basis to do that. Lastly, pitfalls. Pitfalls.
Right. So we've walked you through the key aspects of developing and implementing a successful ABM program. But before we end today's presentation, let's look at a few common pitfalls to watch out for, because the devil is always in the details. So the first one would be friction or lack of coordination between marketing and sales. Most companies that I've worked with are not as well coordinated as they should be between marketing and sales, particularly business-to-business companies. And I did a study about a year ago for the Marketing Science Institute that looked at the minimum tool to coordinate well between marketing and sales is CRM, but that's often not enough. A second pitfall would be goals being unclear or misaligned. The internal organization in our company is not as well aligned to serve key accounts. We're not sure which accounts to focus on. We don't know or can't reach buyers. Within focused accounts, we haven't developed personas on them. We're not delivering relevant, personalized messaging, the right kind of content marketing for them. And then finally, data and technology is inadequate for the tasks.
Should anyone in this webinar be interested, our firm does provide multiple strategic development and executional programs that are around ABM. The two are, one is called ABM Plus, which provides full service ABM program design, implementation, and impact analysis over time. And the other is called Content Cast, which is a targeted content marketing program, providing targeted executive database build-out, ongoing custom and curated content development, targeted digital distribution, both with email and social media, and ongoing program impact and delivery analysis. Feel free to contact us if you have any interest in either of these. I believe we have a few minutes left, Lynn, to address any questions anybody would have had. Back to you.
Great, thanks so much. So we did have a few questions come in, and I'm going to try and put them in an order that makes sense to us. So early on, probably around slide 15, we had a question that was like, exactly what technique do you use to qualify the targets that you identify? So, you know, you're in a market and you have some ideas of these targets, but how does one prioritize them? What are the kinds of things that you either measure, or do you just make that as kind of a guess opinion? How does that work?
Yeah, this is Jeff. I'll try to take that one. Not to sound like I'm punting this, but it kind of depends on your situation. Typically, what companies will do is identify either some targets that are either strategically valuable or financially valuable, and those are the two most common. So, for instance, it's pretty usual for companies to identify maybe a small subset of current customers that are their biggest, their most valuable, and also perceived to have the greatest upside growth potential. And then along with that, they may look out into the marketplace, in the green space, customers they don't serve, that they would like to have as customers.
Fit the profile.
And fit them, and usually they're going to fit the profile for strategic reasons and financial benefit reasons.
Next question.
Great. So how does one get the data? Or you had shown in slide 20 kind of all of this information about this this person that was their target. How does one get that data, and what does that function inside the organization look like? Who's doing it?
I think we're referring to the build out of a persona profile.
Yeah.
Basically, it comes out of any available resource, any available research that you have done, primary research on audiences, input that you have from your field sales folks who call on customers and can describe the kinds of folks, anecdotal experience your company has had with decision makers and influencers, and all of that information gets sort of aggregated together. Wes, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I did a project last year for one of the larger data storage companies in the world. I think they have our largest data storage site in Atlanta, and we got most of that online.
There's secondary and primary sources, your own research as well as available stuff online. You can pretty much build a profile of those folks that you're trying to reach.
You can also get some of it through your sales force.
Right.
If you have a sales intelligence system where you're asking your salespeople to collect data in the field and report it back to marketing, that also works well.
Great.
Next.
You had an engagement as one of the metrics. So how do you measure the depth of engagement?
There are several ways to do it, some of which can be quantitative, some of which are qualitative. But you can, for instance, if you would do quantitative, you can take a look, and this isn't to be used in every case, but it can be used in some. You've got a target company. How many hits or visits do you get to your website from that company? First of all, how many different people are visiting your company? And then also, how deeply do they spend time, how much time do they spend on the website? How deeply do they engage with it? That's one.
How many pages they visit?
How many pages that visits. Another one is if you send out emails. How many of those get clicked on and opened with? Another one could be doing some ad hoc research where maybe you're calling up or polling some folks at your target company. Any one of those methods can be used to assess the level and the depth of the engagement.
Lynn,
the breadth and the depth.
Lynn, by the way, I forgot to mention when we showed the video and talked about the sourcing company, this was a private equity owned, relatively small firm that had done virtually no key account or targeted B2B content marketing in the past. And in 6 months, from a variety of content being targeted both through email and social media, this relatively small company generated almost $70 million in new quotes from folks they did not know before. some of those from existing customers as well, since the audience was a blend. So there can be real and immediate impact from these programs in a relatively short amount of time.
Great. So, so I think a lot of our members are familiar with key account management, and we maybe that's one of the reasons there might be friction between marketing and sales if we go doing ABM, because we're already in accounts. We've got long-term relationships with these accounts and with contacts in the account. So if you begin this program and you're trying not to offend, can you give some indications of like what would you initially lead with in terms of content if you're going to go suddenly communicating with the high-level contacts in these accounts?
Well, that's where a good coordination between sales and marketing becomes important, and we can use our customer relationship management database, but then we also need to get into social media to better understand the customer so that the sales can help lead marketing in that relationship.
Well, a very non-offensive form of content should always be 70 to 80% informational. So perhaps your company has done some new research and wants to share some of that data. Perhaps there's some emerging trends in the industry that the R&D department can help you talk about that would be thought leadership and provocative and informing to your target audience without doing anything to disrupt, in fact, more to enhance the image that current customers and accounts have about your company. So you want to bring something of value. You just don't want to be overtly self-promotional.
Mm-hmm. So if it doesn't seem educational, then it's probably not a good starting point. If you're not
We call it educational, informative, and/or provocative.
Mm-hmm.
When we do sales training, we often say, if you don't excite or disturb your customer in some way, you probably failed. They won't even remember you. So you do want to be provocative, educational, informative. You just don't want to be overtly self-promotional. That's the watchwords we use.
Right, and then that needs to be captured in some sort of marketing encyclopedia or library that's made available to the sales side in the CRM system. It is one place it can be loaded.
All the content can be made available. As a matter of fact, that's a great point, Wes. All of the content created for these programs can be reused by salespeople as attachments, PDFs, links to videos in their communication to their customers. And it should be made available to sales as well.
And I think the other thing is that you would want to make sure that sales is aware, because if they get a question that says, hey, I got this from your company, they shouldn't be surprised, right? So there really is that really high linkage. Is there some are there types of content or media that are more receptive than others in your expectation? Like, is video better than white papers, or PowerPoints better than brochures? Or I'm sure it depends somewhat, but and some of them are much more expensive to produce. So can you give some guidance about that?
A couple comments. Number one, depends on the industry. If you're doing pharma and you're targeting, highly technical people, white papers and research reports might be very interesting to them. But generally in B2B, industrial, manufacturing type companies, video is number one by far. 75–80% of the communication we see and the highest scores for content feedback is on video. Slideshows are very good. Infographics or quick reads. White papers can be good, although further down the list. Blog entries are helpful if they're not too long, but video is far and away the most compelling content you can use. And in today's world, video can be created as the sample I showed you fairly quickly and fairly inexpensively. It need not be original production. It can be very inexpensive with the right folks who know how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think my experience too is I often will see something forwarded to me that I think was targeted to that person, but they found it interesting and they forwarded it. So you get this extra little lift when someone says, I like this so much, I'm going to share, right? So in my case, most of that comes from something that is really quick. It's a video, not a read. It's an infographic with some interesting data, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Well, remember, all of the content that's typically created should be hosted on the website. So it improves your SEO, it's available for repurposing, it's all reachable through a link. And frankly, in the course of 6 months, you can have 40 or 50 pieces of original content in your library. And of course, along over 12 months, that can be double that number. So you have a lot of content to work with in a good ABM or content marketing program.
I think all of that is really around the best of just creating good content marketing, even if you are not doing ABM, and that is making sure that you're creating this valuable content, that you're leveraging it everywhere, and it's on your website, and it's also in your salespeople's hands so that they can push it out too. So all of that's a good thing, but if you can start from the top where you want to actually get the sales to go, that's the distinct difference here, right? So it's all good behaviors, but I think a lot of us, and I'm hearing some of these questions that are coming through, have some concerns that we're really not sure if we're ready to go talk to the top of a organization that we've never sold to. But you know, I think if you come at it from, I'm going to help you with more knowledge, more insights, something that makes you think, and remember my name to go with it. That's how you get started. This was really great, guys.
And remember,
Yep.
Okay, only 3 to 5% of the market is in the market at any one time. So you got to keep your brand and your company top of mind.
Got to keep.
And we've done some research. We've done some research on.
Everybody could have captured their email addresses, but if not, you're going to get a link to the slides and a way to re-listen to this, or with your teams if you'd like. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. I really appreciate all of your time. And if there's any more questions, if you don't get to the Ascension guys, you can certainly come to ISBM and we'll connect you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
We're good, Lori.